I'm Seamless, and today it's time for a new How to Bass tutorial, and I am going to show you how to make this sound. Alright, so the title, Unison Index Mapping. This is something that I do a lot in FL stuff because it does just have a much more primary and for the longest time, one of the only things that was this kind of direct control over something like this. The idea being that you could have a parameter, have many voices of unison, however many you want, and then move this parameter and have it be different position for each of those voices. It's only showing us the one voice here, but we can see all four up there. So that's the thought, that like, cool, you have parameters, you have unison, which is just cloning what you're doing, and then why not be able to have individual control of all the parameters, just in there. Of course, you could just manually make copies of things and manually alter parameters, and for the most part, that's kind of what I've been doing. That's what I've been doing for most things. But this is now actually something that's kind of more efficient to do that just with anything, not just FL stuff. And that is to use this big velocity stacking business to just change any parameter based on velocity. So I also mentioned that this was a trick that Afixa showed me a while ago, and I'm still giving him credit for this because using unison manually is the thing that I didn't think of back then, and still basically didn't think of again until I thought about it again. So that's still the same core concept, but now we're going to extrapolate that into, now you can just be whatever parameter by selectively altering the velocity for each individual note, and then using velocity as a thing onto whatever you want to have, whatever you want to be indexed. Now, I didn't expect to go this far with it, but because Phase Plant, which this plugin is, lets you do this. The velocity here has this range setting, and you can just attach the microcontroller to the range setting. So now we're doing the same unison index modulation that we were doing with Serum, but with Phase Plant, as long as I play 4 notes at once. So also of note, Phase Plant has this special sauce, this button you can turn on that says poly. What that means is that it will process the effects lane as individual for each individual voice that's being played. This is not just in consideration of unison, although it is. If I turn on unison on global unison, that does mean that there'll be 4 of these, and the lanes will be individual. So instead of having 4 voices go into 1 distortion, for example, it'll be 1 voice per 1 distortion 4 times. In that case. In this case, what this will mean is that if I play more than 1 note, the more than 1 note is a different entire generation. So this is more fun, typically, like more primarily for like if I'm playing pads and chords and things, because it means that I can have reverb on every individual note be only the signal chain of just that note for every note. And that's cool. That's really cool. CPU intensive as hell, but cool. Now, in this example, what we're doing is using this to index map the effects so that they are running in individual lanes for each individual note. They all just happen to be the same note, with only the velocity being different. So, just to be funky about it, I decided to just be like, well, we're doing unison, so let's do unison. And in this case, I decided to use the pitch shifter. So I'm doing post pitch shifting, but split unison. So I'm just doing unison, but with a post process as opposed to the internal version. Although I am doing an internal version of it, but not normal. It's fun. I'll get to it. Now, what's fun is that they have this correlate option that makes the pitch shifter do an incredibly way better job than I guess it used to. I don't know if this was here all the time or not, but because it recalls this just an older algorithm, I just like it better. I like how it sounds better. Play it, damn it. You hear how perfect it is? It's too perfect for my vibe at the moment. That just like the blurg of it. The blurg of it, guys. I might call an album that. So meanwhile, what else is happening that's important? Oh yeah, so that's just this guy though. So I only have the one that says poly. The other 2 are just lanes. Just lanes. So we have this guy doing what it's doing for 4 notes, that is whole spread and velocity. And what this guy all is just, it's just some waveforms. I barely, like, I didn't want to get, I keep forgetting this has wavetables. I keep forgetting that phase plant is a wavetable synthesizer, because I get so far so fast with just basic stuff that I don't try to start with super complication stuff. I just forget. I forget that they can do that. But I mean, I am using pretty basic waveforms. One thing I am doing that's fun is I have velocity linked sync. So just to show you, let's see what this all sounds like kind of deconstructed. So without our compression, I do have another group going though. But before we take all that down, I really want to show it. And it's this guy. I'm using a one voice of a unison. What the heck? But I have it set to Shepherd. And what this is talking about is Shepherd's toning. And what it's doing is that normally when you play a scale, right, you go, I'm looking at my camera, make sure I can do bottom, left or right, damn it, bottom, top. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like it's just bottom to top, and you come up here and you are in a higher harmonic order than you are down here, double the rate of its original if it's an octave higher. What the Shepherd's tone does is that as you play a higher note, it's crossfading the previous octave's lower notes harmonic structure for each note. So by the time you get to the next octave, you are where you began. You're at the same note now. So over here has this center option, and when you move it, you see it gives you like the beginning and ending of where the center is. And I just set it to be the scale, which right now is E scale. I'm playing 4 notes, but that's why when it goes up and plays that really high one, it's still down there. It's just chilling. And this just means that this sub area, I can play whatever note I want up high, and it'll still be bass. It'll still be doing that. Because I am playing a particularly high note in the MIDI from down here, like 2 octaves up. So that's pretty outside bass range. But because I had the sub in there, it's still sub. It's still bass. Isn't that cool? So yeah, that's the not unison that this guy is. Kapow. He's getting set into lane 3, coming out just straight up out here, and then so without lane 3, we have. Oh yeah, so in lane 3, I also have this reverb, which is a convolver. They have a convolver built in there. This is usable. It's usable. I'm not trying to be like it's bad. I'm surprised as hell at how not bad it is what I'm getting at. It has exactly only the parameters I care about in the smallest package I've ever seen something that dense as an effect, is all. I'm just very impressed by the little package of it all. But yeah, it's there. It's a reverb. It's not super complicated. I shortened it to be like rhythmically relevant to what's happening, because it's a bit dense. So that's why it's working. It's because you can see the tail out there. It's a bit different. This lets you change the beginning and the end, and then has separate fade in and fade out settings. So you can have it be just a wall that stops, and then the stretching, the changing of pitch to make it appear bigger or smaller depending on the space or sound you give it. Doesn't have to be a reverb space that you put into convolvers. That's why they're fun. And then I don't think I messed around with tone and feedback. This is just like a high pass low pass situation. It's not literally a high pass or a low pass, I don't think, but the effect of it is to effectively high pass or low pass it. And then there's a mix, quite low, but still pretty intense. And it's like after the compression, this thing gets compressed twice. It gets compressed on its own ass self, then it gets high passed, then it gets EQ'd a bit, laid in with the sub, and then it gets compressed again with the sub, and then it gets reverb after. So then without that, it's just this guy. This guy. The EQ is doing Scoopy doopy doo. And without the high pass. That's just straight up. That's just this full process coming through this business, and then getting distorted again. I distorted it after this, which, along with doing the resonant business just to mess with it, I tried doing a comb filter first, because to unison stuff, right? Just to be like, okay, well, what if I unison spread a comb filter? That sounds like fun. Couldn't really work it. Didn't really work out. Not really know why. I'm gonna try again, because that still sounds like a good idea. But moral of that story is that I just replaced the whole process with the resonators. That which is like, it's still delay-ish based, so it works. And then I distort it, because that's what you do when you do unison stuff. You distort it again, and that's all going into one distortion though, because I wanted the jamming of it, then without the distortion. So you can kind of see this big calamity on the low end up top here, and then like it just peters out. A big reason I distorted it was to kind of even that out, because that you can do that kind of dynamics processing with distortion. It is effectively compression. It's the same process, just faster, immediate, to be sure. And it did job. It even it way the hell out. And it did it by way of translating that big pillar of low frequency energy that was in there into the big warble you see kind of everything doing. That's sort of the consequence of that. Yeah, and then it got compressed. The compressor is just doing a fast, harsh, really harsh compression job. This being this quick. It's not quite limiting, but it's fine. That the limit up there. That's what that's for. That's also not as harsh. Without all of that, this is what it sounds like now. Loud as balls. It is just, as you can tell, it is quite a bit. I needed to do quite a bit to wrangle it in. A lot of this is to do with how I'm whipping around the resonator. So this is one of the ones that's getting its pitch is different from velocity. It's also no tracking. So it whips around and then it changes a bit. Yeah, the macro itself is just trying to make it fit more on and off kind of deal. Without it. So you can hear the beginnings of the coolness of the synthesis of it, like this business doing the neatness that it is, but it doesn't have that like ghosty, trailed, pitched, phased quality that the comb filter normally does just immediately, but couldn't work out in this example, so that's what I got out of this. Just the slightest bit of phase tinge in just the pitch overlap from this makes it blend the harshish edges, because I like the harshness of it, but just a little bit too much. It's like I need to sand it down a bit, so I use the sand. Fine grit delay sandpaper. Then there's this guy. So this is just straight up the pitch shifter without the velocity. Let's see if this is even valuable as a setting. Wanted to do that so you can hear what essentially one voice sounds like, and also what that thing's change does, so that when velocity is on, which is essentially saying when I'm turning unison on, this is going to, that's what it's grouping together, that process. And exactly how far or wide it is at the moment is something that I just did kind of by hand, and then also by hand, and then also by hand. Like, it's very, very just sort of ears and is it too far or not kind of deal on mostly every one of these steps. So that's how cool that sounded, just like that. And then did I even get this far on just one voice, or did I wait? I think I did do this with. Now, all right. So first, I did experiments just to see if this would even work. I started like I did with the Harmer example. I started with a bandpass filter just to be like, do you function? And then after that, I went with a low pass with a lot more Q and a lot more slope than this. And then it got too phasey, too like destructy. As you can see here, I banded it out a lot. It's mostly just like a pressure curve now. It's just kind of like a volume change into distortion that is getting. It has different levels of distortion per unison voice. It's interesting. Oh yeah, and different bias. That's fun. Is this also being macro? No, it's just there. Well, it's being effectively macroed in the sense that this is being macroed, so that means everything is. If it's being unison, it's being macroed. And that moving around is what's actually causing a lot of most of that like DC-ish offset problematic, just like into distortion, wobbling everything around kind of thing. Because it's literally wobbling everything around. That's what that does. Blending that together was neat. What else? Oh yeah, so I'm FMing a thing. So this is FMing this. Oh yeah, I'm doing the first thing I tried after I realized this all was gonna work was I put unison on this parameter. This is the shifter parameter. So this is a frequency shifter that every one of these has, and this is saying I'm unising frequency shifting. And it sounds really jank if I go even kind of high. You see that value? You see what that says? It says 0. It says 0%. That doesn't say 10%. That's a dash. It's actually not 0%. It's slightly higher than 0%. I didn't type in that value. I let the mouse just let me do that. Thanks. But that's why it's stupendously low. Even though on top of this, I'm also FMing it. But FMing the parameter like this is different because FMing a thing that's phase locked makes the result phase locked sometimes. And even if that result makes it a kind of detuning problem, chances are you can make it something not a problem because you're FMing it with something that's phase locked. But doing the big unison change, that was a bit much. That was too much for this process. Doing a bass thing that actually might work out kind of fun for a higher frequency pad experience. More to come on that. So phase business with this guy just FMing the top and whatnot. That's just me kind of making sure that it's in tune. And I'm doing this not just by FMing a thing and caring about FMing a thing, but I'm by the fact that I chose this to be a triangle wave. I chose it to be a triangle wave because in phase business FM WAM, which it's also being because how you do digital FM, Citrus style FM, FM8 style FM, Yamaha DX7, the granddaddy of all of this stuff. In that land, the fact that this is a flat, straight, unchanging line, and that this is a flat, straight, unchanging line, means that this is one pitch we're going to get and one other pitch that we're going to get. Versus if we had chosen a sine wave, this constantly changing like angle and that constantly changing angle is going to mean a constantly changing pitch result. And then this singular unpitched, like unchanged angle and then a click is going to get us one pitch and a click. And then this completely flat line and then this 360 degree rotated exact position of the flat line and a click is just going to get us 2 clicks. And that's why, in this example, the switching to be 2 different pitches, it doesn't matter if those 2 pitches are wrong. If the switching happens at the right rate, it'll still sound like it's in tune, ideally. I'm also doing is messing with the output of the shifting of the frequency shifter, and that's the part that throws that into kind of questionable whack, but not complete whack because I didn't go so hard. That's how you deal with dangerous parameters like that. You just don't go so hard. Yeah, I didn't listen to this without the unison, because why? I would not have even kind of thought that if I heard this to be like, yeah, let's do this 4 times. That makes sense. Now, although I kind of see how immediately it did translate, because especially one of the first things. Oh yeah, and I guess I did phase change too. So and it's manually bringing the phase back when I do that. Oh, that's that's the biggest devastation there's been so far. I'm just realizing that's a big problem. Because this isn't setting a static phase that's not changing, it's moving it every time it does its motion. So that's something else though. This is another way to get not necessarily better unison, but realer unison in here. Because in regular sort of unison control, there's not really any phase control actions here. There's not really a lot of ways to do like traditional unison. There's a lot of hyper, super crazy, new, brand new, future, amazing unison that I'm just completely super fan of. But if I want to do the stuff I'm used to doing in other plugins, then strangely this works because now I do have. If I wasn't doing this big modulation tree thing, I could just have a static setting. I could just do that and do regular unison just through this external means. What's neat about this technique as a deal is that you can do this to anything. You can do this to anything that has velocity and also that lets you play more than one of the same note. That is a very important caveat because not all of them do, and even the ones that do might not by default. So, for example, I believe, I might have mentioned it in the previous video about Serum, but Serum doesn't let you do it by default. You can make it do it. by going into the global, going into options, and making sure this option is off. It was on by default when I installed this, and I just reinstalled everything, so that felt pretty fresh. So I assume it's just on for you if you've never turned it off, is all I'm saying. And it does what it says. If you try to play more than one of the same note, it'll kill the previous voice and retake it over with a new voice. But what you want to do is not do that, so you can play 4 notes at once, or however many you want, at once you want. And then you have your velocity tag, put it on whatever you want to spread over that value, and now you have unison indexing for that. And to be fair and to be absolutely sure, you can totally do the modulation business for this too inside Serum, by way of there being, you can modulate the modulations business. Which was it? Is it this one? It could be that one. Doesn't matter if it is. There's a bunch. Nope. Yeah, one of those. Basically, there's a configuration by which you can apply a modulation to the depth of the previous modulation of one way or the other, and that makes it so that you can do the unison index mapping and modulation the same way that we're doing it here, and the same way that Vital just does by default. Vital has all of these as parameters and has it all just there going, which is, like, so far one of the more directly sophisticated things I've seen. But this is still pretty killer because it also contains this entire ridiculous super matrix of effects, all of which, because of this poly button, can be unison index mapped. That's a lot. That's more than I've ever messed with. And the only other plugins that I could even think of that kind of compete at that scale of ridiculousness are things like Reactor and Sound Factory. Things that, like, are like buildings by themselves. Anyway, this preset will be available. Do I need to actually? Yeah, this entire FLP will be available in the description of this video, along with the preset, in case you kind of get it and you don't need the MIDI to help you out. But either way, all this will be here. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all of that fun stuff. And as usual, have a nice day.